Hello everyone and welcome back to Age Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. So in this video we're going to be looking at part 3 of the Nighthaunt army video, and this will be about the named characters for the Nighthaunt. So first I want to say before getting into this video is I want to apologise for not putting up a video for about a couple of weeks now, and this is basically just because at work it's been extremely busy. It's been a case of working and getting home, getting as much sleep as I can, going back to work and then repeat. So I haven't had any spare time really at all. Also, unfortunately, I was visited upon by Grandfather Nurgle and got a really sort of sore throat, returned to a chest infection, and I'm over the worst of that now. Still got a little bit of a sore throat, so hopefully you guys can't hear that too much, but it was previously a case of like I was losing my voice, so the videos I could make back then with my voice like that would have been terrible audible. So I hope you guys understand why I haven't made a video for a couple of weeks. Okay, so with the preamble out of the way, let's get into the video. So the name characters for the Nighthaunt. Now of course, how could we not start with Lady Olynder, the Mortarch of Grief? So a little bit of backstory about the Mortarch of Grief before we go into her rules is that firstly she is the 4th Mortarch of Nagash. So we first had, of course, I don't know exactly what order they're in, but you know, we've got Arcan, Neferata and Manfred. I think they're probably the order it's going to be in, and then now we have Lady Olynder. So where did she come from? What did she do? So when Nagash raised this army of Nighthaunt through you know, the great spell he caused, he needed someone to lead the Nighthaunt, and I mentioned this in their you know, their lore video, saying that, you know, the Nighthaunt was a really powerful force that had just risen up all over the mortal realms. However, that was all it was. It was a force. It wasn't an army. It wasn't a, you know, united you know, force with a single purpose. It was just a sort of murderous and, you know, obviously a force that was just uncontrollable. You know, it served Nagash's purposes but was not focused enough. So what Nagash needed to do is get someone to lead it, and that is why he sought out the Mortarch of Grief. And the reason he did this is because the spirit of Lady Olynder, she was already a spirit of very, very sorrow, great sadness, misery and also terror, all of these aspects and emotions that make up what the Nighthaunt are. So that is why Nagash could find none other more suited to the role than her. And as Nagash gives all his Mortarchs with special artifacts and different aspects of Nagash's own power, what he bestowed to Lady Olynder was a part of his power which was called the Mantle of Misery. And this essentially allowed Lady Olynder to this very day be able to weaponize this aspect of the Nighthaunt, you know, the terror, the fear, the misery, the sorrow, all those things I've already mentioned. This allowed Lady Olynder to weaponize them, and partly also what this, you know, power gave her was also to feel all the sorrow within every soul in the mortal realms. And it is this that makes even the bravest warrior or ferocious monster to quiver in fear in front of the Mortarch of Grief. She also goes by many more names than the one given to her by Nagash, such as the Mourning Bride, the Unrequired Queen, and the Veiled Lady. These were given to her through past tragedies, but despite the power she wields and the position she now has, none have seen beneath the veil of the Lady Olynder, that is, seen it and lived to tell the tale. Okay, so that's a bit of backstory about the Mortarch of Grief. So now we're going to go into our rules, and she is obviously, you know, the head of the Nighthaunt army, as I have just been talking about, and she is one of the most expensive models in the Nighthaunt army. She is going to cost you 240 points, and obviously she's unique because she is a named character, so she can't take command traits or artifacts. So that is something to always bear in mind when you want to field her on the battlefield, as well as all the other named characters. So what is she like in the game? So looking at her standard stats, what we've got, looking at the stat wheel, she's got a movement of 6 inches, she's got a 4+ save, she's got bravery 10, and she's got 7 wounds. So yeah, movement not bad. Maybe would have liked it to be a bit faster, but you know, not too bad I suppose. 4+ save, yeah, good. That's standard for what we've seen in Nighthaunt army. Would have maybe have liked a 3+ save because you know she's meant to be, you know, the grand leader of the Nighthaunt, but no, 4+ save what she's got. Bravery 10, yeah, we expect that. Wounds 7. Yeah, that's not many wounds at all really, which makes it a bit worrying about keeping her alive. However, something to bear in mind is that she is not a monster, so she does not have a wounds chart saying that if she's taken, I don't know, like 2 or more wounds, her weapons get weaker and so on. So at least that is something. Right, okay, now looking at her weapons, she's got 2 and they are both melee weapons. And the first one, Staff of Midnight, it's got a 2-inch range, it's got 3 attacks, freeze to hit, freeze to wound, -2 rend and D3 damage. So yeah, that's a pretty nice attack there. To be fair, yeah, I think probably the nicest thing about that is probably the -2 rend. And then the second attack is the Banshee's Handmaiden's Spectral Claw. So it's got a 1-inch range, 6 attacks, force to hit, force to wound, no rend and 1 damage. Pretty standard, to be honest. I mean, it has got the Frightful Touch ability, which we will get to later when we look at the abilities. And that's a common thing we see throughout the Nighthaunt. So yeah, the attacks are alright, but that is not why we take Lady Olynder to the battlefield. Right, okay, so going on to the abilities, she can fly, of course, and then she's got a companion, so that's the Handmaidens, and they have got the Frightful Touch ability, so that is on a hit roll of a 6, and that's an unmodified 6, they do a mortal wound instead of normal damage. So I've talked about that lots before, the Nighthaunt, a lot of their things have got it, so yeah, it's good, it's a good chance of you being able to do mortal wounds to the enemy. Yeah, you need a 6 to do it, but you're getting 6 attacks, so on average I believe, you know, you should get 1 mortal wound done to the enemy. Okay, then looking at the next ability, which is a Grave Sand of Time. What it does is, once per battle in your hero phase, you can choose either to inflict D6 mortal wounds on an enemy hero within 6 inches of this model, or heal D6 wounds that have been allocated to this model. Okay, so firstly, D6 mortal wounds is great. You have to do it to an enemy hero, and it has to be within range of 6 inches, which isn't the shortest range, but it's quite short, so it's a bit situational depending if you want to send, you know, your Lady Olynder up straight towards the enemy. However, if there is no, you know, enemy heroes within range, you can use it to heal D6 wounds, which is huge and is the best thing to make this model survivable. I would say that, you know, paired with the ethereal ability she has also got. So yeah, that's good. It's a good way to make it survivable, especially I would say she's only got 7 wounds, so she really needs a healing mechanic there, so it's good she's got that. Okay, now looking at the next ability, which is Lifting the Veil. At the start of your hero phase, pick an enemy unit within 12 inches of this model that is visible to her and roll a dice. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 2+, that unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll. In addition, if any enemy models are slain by this ability, immediately heal D3 wounds that have been allocated to this model. Okay, so that is a nice ability. And like I say, within 12 inches, that is a big range you've got there. And especially if you're picking, you know, 1 wound models, it's a great opportunity for you to be able to heal wounds to yourself. And it's triggered on a 2+. So it is nearly, you're doing D6 mortal wounds to that enemy unit. Of course, if you get it on a 1, nothing happens, so that neglects it being the same. But if you get it off, it is basically D6 mortal wounds to the enemy, and you know, potentially a chance of healing D3 wounds to yourself. And if you're doing it against, like I say, an enemy unit that has 1 wound models, and you get this off, you're going to do at least 2 mortal wounds to them. So yeah, exactly, you're going to be healing wounds back to this model. Right, okay, and then the Mortarch of Grief. So this ability is add 1 to the number of models that flee from enemy units that fail battle tests while they are within 12 inches of this model. Okay, so you look at it as the bottom scale, how useful this is. You're playing against, you know, again, 1 wound models. I don't know, you know, Skaven or, you know, Daughters of Cain or whatever army that has mainly hordes we're sort of talking about. Yeah, you're just going to make, you know, 1 extra model run away, 1 extra wound run away. It's not huge, but it still helps. Now, if you look at, if you're playing against ogres, or you're playing against another elite army like a heavy crypt horror army or a heavy stormcast eternal elite army or a beast claw raiders army, and the, you know, the list goes on and on about these elite armies. you're playing against one of those armies, and suddenly you're making an extra model run away. Let's say you're going against Beast Raiders, making ever a Mournfang pack, model run away. That's absolutely huge. And yeah, of course that is situational. That's probably the best case scenario. But if you do get it off, it'd be absolutely fantastic. So yeah, it's a great little ability to have. While they are within 12 inches of her, and it's not like wholly within 12 inches as well. So it's quite a big range. Right. Okay. Then the next ability, Wail of the Damned. So at the start of your shooting phase, roll 2d6 for each enemy unit that is within 10 inches of this model. If the roll for that unit is higher than its bravery characteristic, it suffers d3 mortal wounds. Great, so other potential here to get mortal wounds to the enemy. There's already quite a few ways looking at abilities so far. So this is nice, and beating their bravery. Again, of course it's situational against what army you're going to fight. If you're going to fight Skaven or Goblins or something, fantastic. If you're going to fight someone like Death or Demons, it's not going to be so much of a case. But, like we said with the Nighthaunt, they are going to make the enemy -1 bravery a lot of the time. So, yeah, it has got potential, and also d3 mortal wounds, if you get it off, isn't bad. It's swingy because it's a 2d6 roll, but when you get it off, which should be, it should happen in most games, it's an extra way to deal mortal wounds to the enemy at the end of the day. It's an extra ability, so that is good there. And then looking at the magic, so she can attempt to cast 2 different spells and attempt to unbind 2 different spells, in your enemy's hero phase. And she has got 1 special spell, and that is Grief Stricken. So Grief Stricken has a casting value of 7. If successfully cast, pick an enemy unit that is within 18 inches of the caster and visible to them until your next hero phase. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by that unit, and add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made from melee weapons that target that unit. Okay, so this is huge. So we've already talked about when I looked at the other units in the Nighthaunt army. There's so many ways for them to get plus to hit and so on, and so many of them to get a really good to hit characteristic. This is just another way for them to get a even a better one. And of course, making the enemy -1 to hit is huge, because there's a lot of things still, things from like the older battle tomes and armies that don't actually have battle tomes yet, that do mortal wounds on 6 pluses to hit. But now with this, if they are a 6+ to hit, now they can't do mortal wounds anymore to you. So, or like there's things like on a 6+ they generate extra attacks or whatever. So that is really useful against those sort of units. And again, it's just a good way to debuff the enemy and buff yourself at the same time. And casting value 7, it's getting a bit higher, but it's not too high. It's reasonable. It's the average on 2 dice, so you should get it off, at least half the time. And then looking at her command ability, so a No Rest for the Wicked. You can use this command ability in your hero phase if this model is your general and is on the battlefield. If you do so, you can return 1 slain model to each friendly Sunball Nighthaunt unit that is within 12 inches of a friendly model with this command ability. Okay, so firstly, this has to be your general. So yeah, thematically that makes sense. If you're taking a Nighthaunt army with Lady Olynder, she would be your general. But bear in mind, she's going to have to be your general to use this command ability, so that means, you're missing out on a command trait, essentially. Depends how important that is for you and your, game plan and your list. So that's something to bear in mind there. But on the other hand, returning 1 slain model to every Nighthaunt unit that's within 12 inches of her, and that's not a wholly within 12 inches, so again, it's a fairly big bubble. So yeah, that's pretty good, returning, even if it's just, 1 chain gas, it ends up going a long way. If it's a blade guy, it's getting a bit bigger, like Grimghast Reapers and so on. Then if it's multi-wound models, like your Hex Race or even your Spirit Host, it starts then getting a bigger impact of realising just how many wounds you're actually regenerating. So yeah, I do like that. The other good thing is that, it's not a once per game command ability, and I'm not saying this is good enough to be a once per game command ability, but just bear in mind it's an extra easy way to generate your Sunball units, bringing back models, and it's only costing you a command point each time you're doing it. So yes, that is Lady Olynder. Looking at her keywords, she's got Death, Malignant, Nighthaunt, Hero, Wizard, Mortarch, Lady Olynder. So the 2 important ones there are Hero and Wizard, of course, and we knew she would be one of those anyway. And like I said, she is going to cost you 240 points. And like I say, 240 points, it's a named character, so I'm always a little bit unsure with named characters, if I'm honest, because I always feel like there's usually another hero in the army that can do that job and do it better because they can take command trait and an artifact. However, a Lady Olynder, she's quite specialised. Me personally, I would have to field her on the battlefield and get her field to see how she plays. Actually, you know, instead of just, you know, looking at it from a theory side point of view to see if she's worth it. If she had 10 wounds, I would probably say yes. You know, she's definitely worth getting and definitely worth trying out. She's probably pretty good, especially if she has lots of mechanics to try and heal herself. But because she only has 7 wounds, I'm a little bit hesitant in the sense that she might be a bit too easy to die. You know, like one bad shooting phase for you from, you know, the enemy shooting could take her out. Yes, she's not a monster, so she could get, you know, the lookout ability going to try and help from enemy shooting. But if she has one bad round of combat against her and so on, she could die pretty easily. So I'm a bit hesitant. I wouldn't say she's bad at all. She's got some really good abilities there. However, I don't know if she's worth it, in all honesty. There might be better things to do that job in the army just by taking, you know, more numbers, just more elite infantry and that sort of thing. But like I say, I think she is worth trying out, definitely. I'd say, you know, from a narrative lore point of view, she'd be an awesome to have in your army. So I'll leave it at that. Right, okay, so looking at the next hero, and this is going to be Kurdos Tan, and I think that's pronounced right. Forgive me if it isn't, but he is the Craven King. So looking at a little bit of lore about the Craven King. In life, he had a ruthless desire to rule, and in doing so, he betrayed many allies and even armies, to the point of killing his own brothers to seek the throne of their kingdom. However, just as he picked up the crown that he so desperately wanted since he was born, Nagash plucked him from life and put him into the spirit world. From there, Nagash was pleased with his decision to pluck Kurdos from life, as he had created quite a powerful kingdom in the underworlds. However, Nagash had a more important purpose for the Craven King. He would elect him to be the lieutenant of Lady Olynder, the Mortarch of Grief. As powerful Lady Olynder was, she needed to have someone as a bodyguard, even if Kurdos has had many treacheries in his past. Nagash would bound his loyalty to Lady Olynder and give the Craven King all that he desired, apart from, again, it had a twist like most of Nagash's creations. The twist was Craven King could never speak any more than a whisper, so he could not announce his own orders and commands to his army. He had to instead have a couple of servants alongside him. These servants would talk for the Craven King. However, they were not as obedient as the Craven King would like, as the servants would also talk about the many betrayals of the Craven King and his other less pleasing titles such as the Usurper and the False Lord. This is the fate that Kurdos, Craven King, has been bound to for the rest of eternity. Yet all that he desired, although very far from what he thought it would be. So that was a bit about his lore. Now let's see what he is like in the game. So he is going to cost you 220 points. He is of course a leader and a unique. So that means he can't take any command traits or artifacts, which we expect, similar to what we're saying with Lady Olynder, and it's going to be the same as all the named characters in Age of Sigmar. So looking at his war score, he has a 6-inch movement, a 4+ save, bravery 10 and 7 wounds. So that is exactly the same as Lady Olynder. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, to be honest, 7 wounds I'm quite more happy with this guy having than Lady Olynder, just because this guy doesn't look like a monster. I mean, like Lady Olynder, she's not a big model going back to her, looking at her. However, I feel like, the Craven King, he's less of a bigger entity, if you see what I mean. So 7 wounds is fair enough, I think. Right, okay, then looking at his melee weapons. So he has 2. The first one, Cervical Spectre, has a 1-inch range. It's got 5 attacks, hits on a 3, wins on a 3, -2 rend, D3 damage. Yeah, I like the sound of that. That's pretty good. D3 damage, swingy, but -2 rend and 5 attacks with 3 to hit and 3 to wound. There's some pretty good stats there. Then looking at the other one, the Wraith Herald's Spectral Claws. So This is 6 attacks, it's got a 1-inch range, it's 4 to hit, 4 to wound, no rend and 1 damage. And this will also have the Frightful Touch ability, which we'll touch on later, but you know, we've talked about it already with Lady Olynder and with a lot of the other Nighthaunt units, which allows you to, if the Wraith Herald Spectral Claws, if they roll a 6 to hit, they do 1 mortal wound to the enemy, and of course that is an unmodified hit roll of 6, so it can't be negated by, you know, debuffing it by making them -1 to hit, or increase making it better by giving them +1 to hit. It is just on a unmodified hit roll of a 6. So that's also quite good, because a lot of the ghosts, you know, the spirit host essentially, their Frightful Touch ability is they get 6 attacks, but they hit on a 5, not a 4. So hitting on a 4 for the Craven King, and it's also the same for Lady Olynder, is, you know, it helps, because usually with the spirit host they either do more wounds or they do nothing. So this one is a bit better. That's why I like it. Okay, so then looking at the abilities, it's a Fury, of course, so everything else in the battle tome, which we're used to. So it ignores, you know, save modifiers, positive and negative, so the enemy's rend isn't going to do anything to you at all, which is huge in itself. But it also means that if you're in cover and things like that, you're not going to benefit from, you know, cover saves and stuff. I've talked about this much more in detail before, but just a reminder there. Okay, and then looking at its other abilities, it's got the Frightful Touch, what I've already talked about, and then it's got the other one, which is if I cannot rule, none shall rule, and this is at the start of the enemy hero phase. After the opposing player receives their command point for that turn, roll a dice on a 5+, subtract a 1 from the enemy player's command points to a minimum of 0, and you receive 1 command point. Okay, so this triggers on a 5+. However, you do get this off. I think it's absolutely hilarious to take your enemy's command points away from them, as I think most people playing 2nd edition enough now to sort of, you're used to always getting that 1 command point, you know, every turn, always rely on being able to do, you know, like a command ability, even Inspiring Presence, rerolling your charges, or, you know, again a 6 or max to run, or you know, a more specialised command ability. We're used to, you know, basically came to expect now that we will have our command point and we will be able to do 1 command ability per turn as per right, you know, and basically just take it for granted. However, Craven King, on the other hand, instead of taking it for granted, he wants to take the enemy's command point, and not just that, but furthermore, also give it to yourself. So yeah, that's a pretty nice one there. Yeah, again, it's a 5+, but you know, look at it as a third of the chance of doing it, so you should get it off, you know, at least once per game. So yeah, I do like that. I think that's a nice little niche ability there. Pretty cool. And again, like I say, it's niche, but you know, if you get the extra command point, it could really be good, not just for the Craven King, but you know, to actually benefit the rest of the army, to being able to get that extra charge, you know, being able to, you know, get that further run in, or like, you know, any other command ability, or that Inspiring Presence that you really need, like, because you didn't expect to take that so much damage, is huge. So yeah, I do like that ability. Right, okay, and then looking at the next ability, which is Soul Crushing Smite. If the unmodified wound roll for an attack made with the Spectral Spectre is a 6, that attack has a damage characteristic of D6 instead of D3. Okay, so this is an attack that has 5 attacks, hits on a 3, wounds on a 3, -2 rend, D3 damage. But if you get a 6 to, you know, wound, and bear in mind this is a unmodified 6, you are now going to do D6 damage instead of D3. And like I've said, this is a -2 rend, so most things are going to have difficulty saving against this. Some things, you know, still have difficulties. You know, you look at Stormcast heroes and so on, you know, 3+ saves, now they've got a 5+ save. Yeah, they'll be annoying and they'll probably roll 5 and they'll save it. However, most other things are now saving on a 6, and, you know, on the other side of that, most other things that have, you know, a 5+ save, they're not going to save at all. And if you know, and if they're not going to save at all at that point, and you're doing D3 damage to them, that's great. But if you got that 6 to wound, now you're doing D6 damage to them, which is absolutely huge. And bear in mind, if in that case you're doing it against, like I say, if they're not going to save, it's probably going to be like a horde unit, and you're doing D3 damage to them anyway, that's great. And D6, you know, like 1 damage you're doing to them is killing 1 model, so you could really tear things apart with this guy. Yeah, it's random, as it is still, you know, like a D3, potentially D6. It's not a fixed damage weapon, but what I like is you've got the potential to do real quite amazing things from this guy, which to be honest, it might not be, you know, that much of amazing attack characteristics, especially compared to other things, but I didn't really expect this guy to be all about combat. So yeah, I quite like that. Right, okay, and then his last ability, Suffer No Rival. So you can reroll failed hit rolls for attacks made with a special sector if the target is an enemy general. Okay, so this is quite situational now. This is, it depends what sort of enemy you're fighting. Depends if your enemy's got like, quite a cheap sort of general at the back, but he's got him for an amazing command ability, whatever, and it's not really going to come forward. If you're playing against an enemy that have gone the other route and their general is just a, you know, kitted out monster destroying machine, you're not really going to want this guy to go probably too close to it either. But for the sort of, you know, middle generals of that range that are going to be fighting in combat but won't destroy everything they come in contact with, send the Craven King their way, and he should hopefully be able to do quite a bit of damage to him. So then looking at the keywords, Death, Malignant, Nighthaunt, Hero, and Kurdos. So obviously, you know, it's important there's a hero in his Nighthaunt. So yes, this guy, 220 points, so he is cheaper than the Mortarch of Grief. Now, I'm sort of carried away a little bit because I, you know, like his attack characteristic is better than Lady Olynder. However, Lady Olynder has got some pretty good abilities. I do like the abilities this guy, you know, he's good against, you know, the enemy general, but yeah, it's a bit situational, isn't it? He's got one to help his weapon, and then I do like the if I cannot rule, none shall rule, which is the chance of you being able to take, you know, command points from the enemy and give them to yourself. I think that is one of the main reasons why I take this guy. But it is a bit risky. In some games you might not get it off, you know, you never know. So I personally feel that in some games this guy will do amazing, you know, he'll get really lucky with his damage rolls and all that sort of thing, and you'll be able to steal loads of command points from the enemy, and then I think some games you're going to be a bit annoyed with this guy, in all honesty. So yeah, like I say, he's a bit risky. If I had one, I'd definitely field it and give it a go. So that is 2 of the named characters done. Now this leads on to the 3rd named character, which is the last one but certainly not the least, and that is Reikenor the Grim Healer, which is firstly what I want to say, a fantastic model, one of my favourite Nighthaunt models there is out there. You know, who doesn't like a dead you know, Pegasus? Absolutely crazy, and especially if it's got candles on its head is a plus from me. So looking at his lore a little bit, talking about that, so basically what this guy was essentially a great healer, and he spent his life sort of dedicating it to try and be able to live forever, and also try and help out other people, you know, who were, you know, essentially going to die. So Nagash has obviously taken an extreme disliking to this guy, as basically this guy's trying to put Nagash out of business a little bit. So Nagash is like, no, you're going to be with me now, and you're going to basically undo all the work you have been doing throughout your entire life, but instead of undoing it for a lifetime, you're going to undo it for eternity by working for me and killing and butchering as many people as humanly possible, or in this case, you know, ghostly possible. So with that, Reikenor the Grim Healer, ever since his death, has been serving Nagash as, you know, wielding dark magic, trying to steal souls from the enemy and pass them on to Nagash, and like I say, basically undoing all the work he had done. And that's Nagash's justice. So he's basically said to this guy, right, okay, you've been committing crime all your life by, you know, preventing these souls coming to me. So what are you going to do? You're going to pay for your crimes now, and we'll see in a eternity or so if I forgive you, which I most certainly won't. Okay, so that's a little bit about his lore. Now going into his what he's like in the game. So looking at his points, first of all, he is going to cost you 180 points, so quite significantly less than the other named heroes we looked at, you know, 40 points cheaper than the Craven King and 60 points cheaper than the Mortarch of Grief. So yeah, getting cheaper. Let's see how much that reflects into his rules. So looking at his war scroll, on his stat wheel, he's got 14-inch movement, a 4+ save, 10 bravery, and 7 wounds. So firstly, exactly the same as the other 2 we've looked at so far, but he's got a movement of 14, which is absolutely huge. There's not many things faster than that, unless you're looking at things like Sinesh and so on. So that is really pretty good there. So let's see what his attacks are like. So he's got 2 melee weapons. He's got a Fell Reaper, which is a 2-inch range, which has got 4 attacks, force to hit, freeze to wound, -1 rend, 2 damage, and then he's got the Ghostly Hooves and Teeth. He's got a 3 attacks, force to hit, force a wound, no rend, and 1 damage. So the ghostly hooves and attacks, yeah, they are, aren't they? I mean, I don't know, maybe 3 attacks, I presume 1's for the teeth, and then 2 or 4, it's 4 legs, which make more sense if it had 5 attacks, wouldn't it? I don't know. I just expected a little bit more for the Pegasus, if I'm honest, as I think that is a really, really cool model. But looking at the Fell Spear, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, this guy's a wizard, isn't it? So for a wizard attack, it's not bad at all, even though it looks like a fucking scythe that will rip apart anything. It's just a 2 damage attack, but, you know, it's not bad. So, and then looking at its abilities. So, firstly, of course, it can fly, and it's got the ethereal, which we all know about. And then going into things that are more sort of specialised, is that it has got a frightful touch, and yeah, of course, we've seen that before, but it gets it on its, you know, Fell Reaper, so it's got a chance of doing, you know, mortal wounds in batches of 2, so that's pretty nice. You know, if it's an unmodified hit roll of 6 for its, you know, Fell Reaper, it is going to do 2 mortal wounds instead of its, you know, normal damage. So yeah, I like that there. And then looking at its more sort of unique abilities is the Corpse Candles, which is in your hero phase before this model attempts to cast a spell. You can say that it will snuff out a corpse candle. If you do, pick either this model or an enemy model within 12 inches of this model. That model suffers 1 mortal wound. If the mortal wound was suffered by the enemy model, add 1 to the casting roll. If the mortal wound was suffered by this model, add 3 to the casting roll. Okay, so obviously this really depends on how much you want to get your spells off. I would say, you know, depending, you know, if there's an enemy unit within 12 inches, always just go for the making the enemy unit take 1 more wound and you get them +1 to your casting rolls. I mean, yeah, +1 is usually good enough to get most spells off unless you're going crazy with the, you know, casting values of 10 and so on. And you're doing a mortal wound to the enemy. Otherwise, you start doing mortal wounds to yourself, and you've only got 7 wounds here, so it's a bit risky for my liking, unless there's like your game depends on you getting a certain spell off. Okay, and then looking at its next ability, which is Reap Like Corn. So we've seen this with the Corn Wraith, and you can reroll failed hit rolls for attacks made with a Fell Reaper if the target unit has 5 or more models. So like I said, we've seen this before. Yeah, pretty good, as you've got the Frightful Touch ability as well, and your 2 damage attack on that weapon. Pretty good there. And then going into the magic, he has got 1 spell, and he can only cast 1 spell in your hero phase, and he can unbind 1 spell in the enemy hero phase. And then the spell he's got is the Wraith Storm. So Wraith Storm has a casting value of 7 and to successfully cast, pick an enemy unit within 12 inches of the caster that is visible to them. That unit suffers a D3 mortal wounds. If any models in that unit are slain as a result of this spell, that unit immediately suffers an additional D3 mortal wounds. Okay, so casting value 7, so like we saw before, average, you know, dice roll with 2 dice, so you should get it off quite a few times. And yeah, you're doing basically an arcane bolt to an enemy. Well, when I say an arcane bolt, I mean the old arcane bolt to the enemy, which I still don't know why they changed it, comparing it to spells like this. Yeah, I mean, you've only got a 12-inch range with this. D3 more wounds to the enemy, and then doing a chance to do an extra D3. And like I say, you're picking 1 wound models. You've got a pretty good, well, if you're picking 1 wound models and you get the spell off against them, you're going to do another D3 mortal wounds to them, so it is pretty good against sort of horde units with that, or even just elite infantry in all honesty if they have 1 wound. And then looking at keywords, he's got Death Malignant, Nighthaunt, Hero, Wizard, and then Reikenor the Grim Hailer. So obviously important that he's a hero and wizard. And yeah, that is him. So for 180 points, he is okay. I would say with his Corpse Candles, it's not worth him taking mortal wounds because, you know, it's not so easy for him to heal. There are ways for him to heal within the Nighthaunt army, but not as easy as, you know, the Mortarch of Grief, for example. But yeah, I think he can fit in quite a few armies because also he's 180 points. He's not going into the 200 margin, is he? He's you know, more justifiable fitting him in, and he's got a good movement, and he's a wizard, so he'll be able to take, you know, your Nighthaunt spells as well. So yes, those are the 3 named characters for the Nighthaunt. What I would say with them is, this is just my personal view, I'm a little bit disappointed because I would have preferred them to be more in points, or in particular I would have preferred Lady Olynder, the Mortarch of Grief, and Reikenor the Grim Hailer, as they are, you know, I want to call them bigger models, but they're not massive. I mean, I was disappointed with Lady Olynder that she's a small model. I was expecting her to be bigger and for her to be, you know, more powerful and have more wounds and so on. But of course, I would happily pay more points for it. You know, she could be a 360 point model or something like that, or 400 point model, and be a bigger model and just be more powerful overall. That was really what I was hoping for, I think, and that's why I was a little bit disappointed. Of course, that's not something I'm coming to realise now. That's something I realised when it first came out and stuff, but I'm just voicing my opinions there. And Reikenor the Grim Hailer, I would much rather him be a, you know, like more expensive hero, give him, you know, an extra 100 point cost or something like that, and make him into something really nasty, like a Lord Citizen on Dracov, you know, like make him something as powerful. That would have been really, really cool. But, you know, if it's a different role and he's a wizard and all that sort of thing, he's got great movement, so can't complain too much. But I don't want to say, like, I think these guys are bad. I just hope him for something a bit different, for them to be more powerful but cost more points. Because the Nighthaunt army doesn't have that big, you know, heavy point model. I mean, you know, like the Mongol is fairly expensive in points, and, you know, the Black Coach is, you know, a huge model, but they don't have a zombie dragon sort of, no, a vampire and zombie dragon sort of heavy player in the army. I'm not saying that they need it, but it's something to be nice, you know, a big centerpiece model. And I know, you know, the Black Coach is a bit like that, but I hope you know what I mean, like a real powerhouse in the army. I feel like the Nighthaunt don't have it, but they make up for it in different ways. And the named characters are certainly a nice flavour to add to the army, and I think that's how I want to leave it with them. They do add some nice things. They're not bad in any stretch of the imagination, and some of the models are pretty damn cool, especially Reikenor the Grim Hailer for me. Right, okay, so that has been the named characters for the Nighthaunt. It was a little bit short of this video. As you know, the first army video for the Nighthaunt was nearly 2 hours. The second one was over an hour, and then this one is coming up to 40 minutes now, and I think that's sort of a nice length for this one. And you can see why, you know, this was just talking about three named characters within the Nighthaunt. The three named characters, you know, the Mortarch of Grief, the Craven King, and the Grim Hailer. Just three characters, and it's taken me about 40 minutes to talk about them. So this is why I wanted to keep them separate to the rest of the heroes from the army, which was in the part 2 video, and I think that was a better decision, so I'm glad I did that. And like I said, guys, I apologise for, you know, the delay of this video exactly, as it's been, you know, like near enough about 2 weeks, I think, since part 2 of the Nighthaunt videos was released. However, like I said, the reasons why I couldn't really do it in that time, and I would have liked to have boxed the Nighthaunt videos off in like a sort of 2-week window, and then move on to the new army I want to do a lore video and, you know, army videos about and so on, and carry on the series like that. But this is just the way how things turned out. And to be honest, guys, sort of underestimated doing the Nighthaunt videos and all that sort of thing, because, oh my god, there's quite a lot to them, guys, in all good ways. It just takes a while to sort of talk about it and really get my thoughts together and sort of plan the videos, which is all good things, but of course just takes a little bit longer from when I originally announced the videos. So yeah, guys, that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if so, please like, subscribe and comment down below, as again, I cannot describe how much that helps me. And on that note, I wanted to say a big thank you to all of you, as I know that now I do have over 700 subscribers, which is, guys, honestly, is much more than I thought I would ever have when starting this YouTube channel. And like I've mentioned before, when I did start this YouTube channel, I got like 1 or 2 subscribers. I was over the moon, but now the fact that I've got over 700 is quite frankly unbelievable. So I can't thank you guys enough for your support, and it really, really makes me happy that you guys enjoy these videos and are kind enough to support me. Right, so with that sort of heartful message sent to you guys, really, you know, like I said, I can't thank you enough for that. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe or like the video, and comment, as what I also want to hear from you guys is, when I make these videos, I don't want them to be all about my views and my thoughts. I'd really like to hear your guys' thoughts about the particular army I'm covering. So like today about the Nighthaunt, or what videos you'd like to see in the future, what armies you'd like me to dive into, that sort of thing. You got any questions, please put them down in the comments and I'd be happy to answer. I apologise as well for there's been a bit of delay to be able to reply to some of your comments lately, but like I've said before, that's due to things like work and the, you know, bloody Nurgle visiting me and so on. But I do look forward to bringing you the next video, which should be the part 4 and the final part of the Nighthaunt army video, which would be great, and that will be the Behemoth. So this will be the Mongol, which I know a lot of you have been looking forward to hear about, and the Black Coach. And I will also include the spells for Nighthaunt in that video as well to get them boxed off. And then that will mean we can move on to our new army, which I'll be very happy to explore. So, like I said, guys, I thank you very much for watching the video. If you have enjoyed it, please do the like, subscribe, comment thing. As I said, you know, that's absolutely great and can't thank you enough. And apologies if I was a little bit quiet in this video. Like I said, I've still got a bit of a sore throat, so I didn't really want to shout or anything like that. So hopefully that wasn't too noticeable. And that's it, guys. So thank you very much for watching this video. And remember, until next time, Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.